Hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris Meany here of FTN, checking in with a few StatHero picks to consider on this Friday, April 23rd. 14 games around the diamond this evening, so plenty of different options when you're putting together your lineup, which will go only up against StatHero's lineup. That's right. It's one of my favorite things about StatHero is that it's you versus them. You beat them, boom, you double up your money. You don't got to worry about competing against thousands of different lineups. You don't have to worry about ownership percentages or guessing who StatHero is going to come up with because they post their lineup early in the morning and then you have a chance to really attack it. So we'll talk about their lineup in a little bit. Check out StatHero.com. Give them the follow on Twitter at StatHeroHQ. There's two links inside the description of this video that will help you out if you are indeed new to StatHero. First, a StatHero 101. I did a video on basically the games that StatHero has to offer, the scoring system, the settings, because you can play across all the sports that you love. It's not just baseball, it's NHL, it's football when the time comes, NASCAR, PGA, NBA, absolutely everything that StatHero has to offer. And we got free picks over at ftndaily.com every single day to check out. You click the chat link up top of ftndaily.com. It's going to get you inside our free StatHero Discord channel where there are even more picks flying around there as well. And then there's a second link inside the description of this video if you just like to read, you don't want to listen. It's basically the same sort of deal from our guy Tyler Lochner. It's a beautiful layout of the game StatHero and just some tricks and how to attack lineups and what to do in the scoring system, how to get paid out, which contest to join, all that stuff. So check out the StatHero app review. The link, again, inside the description in the StatHero 101. So there are a couple different games that StatHero has to offer. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but again, follow the link inside the description there. But what I will remind you is that the promo code to use here is FTN. And when you use FTN, you're going to get 2 first-time deposit matches by signing up for StatHero. Again, the link inside the description. A 30% bonus match on your first time deposit and a bonus match on your first sportsbook play up to $250. So it is 2 different ways to play here, the revolutionary DFS sportsbook and a fantasy-based survivor pool. I will be talking about the DFS sportsbook. So it's my lineup against StatHero's. It's your lineup against StatHero's, and away you go. Like I said, you don't got to worry about competing against 1,000 different industry sharks. You don't got to worry about ownership projections. You do have to fit under the cap. You got to pick an MVP and 5 flex. It's as simple as that. Let's bring up StatHero's lineup. They have Bryce Harper as their MVP, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Yuli Gurriel. So they're going with a mini 3 Philadelphia stack in Colorado cores. I totally get it. And then the 3 Houston stack against Andrew Haney and the Angels. You got their projected fantasy point total at 36.9. Not bad. I think we can beat it. I understand where they're going here. I really do. You know, the Colorado bats are very expensive against Vince Velasquez as a fly ball pitcher. And then the Philly bats are cheap, but they're playing in cores. So I have no problem rolling out a Harper or rolling out a Bregman because they're in good spots and they're very, very cheap. But I didn't do that here with my lineup, and as I bring up in just a few moments, I want it to be different here. But you can still have a unique lineup even with rostering a Harper or a Bregman. Maybe you put Bregman in the MVP spot because you went 1.5 times the fantasy points as opposed to the flex. So maybe you go Bregman in the MVP and you have Harper as just a flex play. But I get it. Like I said, where they're going, they're not making things easy on us. Those Philly bats are super cheap. I don't think they should be that cheap. And then the Houston bats are cheap as well. But you know, Andrew Haney is not the end of the world here to go up against this lineup. Andrew Haney's had 2 strong starts in a row now after the first one was bad. And he didn't face Houston at all last year, but in 2019, he had 9 innings, 2 starts against them. He only allowed 4 earned runs, so he has the capability of being, okay in this start. And then German Marquez on the hill for Colorado. I like this guy a lot. I think he's a really good pitcher. I think he'd be a top 20 pitcher if half of his starts didn't come at Coors Field, and that's just what we're working with here today. But a 3.19 ERA at home so far, 17 innings, 3 starts. He's only allowed 6 runs in those 3 starts, 3 or fewer in all of them. 1 came against the Dodgers, a very good team, obviously, and he only allowed 1 earned run against LA. So he's been good this year. He's rocking a 61% ground ball rate. So I think we can take this lineup. Let's bring up my lineup, and this is what I'm rolling with. Let's start with the Oakland Bats. They have a 5.1 team implied total. It's the 3rd highest on the board, the highest on the board from any team not playing in cores. They're up against Baltimore, Jorge Lopez. So I'm looking at Matt Olson and Matt Chapman. Let me talk about Lopez for a minute first. 242 innings pitched over the course of his career. Over a 6 ERA, 38% hard hit rate, and a 79% contact rate. This season, 13 2/3. He's allowed 13 hits, 13 runs, 5 homers, at least 1 homer in every single outing, and 5 walks. 4 innings at home so far this season, 7 earned runs and 2 bombs. We got the win blowing out to center at Camden Yards. I think this is a good spot for some of these Oakland bats. And last season, 7 home runs allowed for Lopez in 39 innings, a 16% strikeout rate, and a 7% walk rate to go along with an 80% contact rate. So he's not striking anybody out. He's struggling a little bit with some of the walks, and the contact rate is very high. He doesn't have a lot of swing and miss inside his lineup. So let's look at the career numbers. Left-handed bat slashing 300, 365, 530, a 376 WOBA, a 35% fly ball rate, a 40% hard hit rate, and a 22% line drive rate. So not phenomenal numbers for lefties against him, but decent, right? Decent enough. And Oakland bats, let's take a look at Olson and Chapman since the start of 2020 against right-handed pitchers. Matt Olson has the 16 home runs. He's very expensive, obviously, checking in at $11K, but he's got the 16 home runs, which is the most on the A's, and a 356 WOBA against righties. Chapman has the 10 homers and a 319 WOBA. This season, it hasn't really gone well for Chapman. He just has the 1 home run. The 52% fly ball rate, though, against right-handed batters, and for Olson against righties, he's been real good. He's been real nice. 5 bombs, slashing 357, 438, 737. He's got the 495 WOBA and the 231 WRC plus. So those numbers are phenomenal up against a contact pitcher. Give me Olson. I don't think you need to go Chapman. I'd like him. I'm going to put him in there. I think more bang for your buck if you can find a way to get JD Martinez. I would go with Olson or Martinez as my MVPs today. I don't have JD Martinez in the lineup, but I wanted to throw him out there against UC Kikuchi. An unbelievable hitter against left-handed pitching. The rest of my lineup looks like this: Freddie Freeman and Marcell Ozuna. So Freeman is 9.7, Ozuna's 8.8 up against Luke Weaver. Weaver's got the 40% hard hit rate since the start of 2019, 48% this year, a 43% fly ball rate this year, and a 48% fly ball rate last year. That's red flags. Anytime you're above 40, it's a red flag, but when you're flirting with 50%, that's a major red flag in my opinion. He's allowed 4 homers in his 15 innings so far because of that high fly ball rate. And left-handed bats against Weaver, looking at last season, 2020, a larger sample size than this year, slashing 320, 388, 573, and a 405 WOBA. And right-handed bats against Weaver last season, a 55% fly ball rate and a 43% hard hit rate. So some of the numbers better for lefties, but for right-handed bats, the higher hard hit rate and the higher fly ball rate. And this is what I'm looking at when it comes to Freeman and Ozuna this season. Freeman against righties, 4 homers. Ozuna just 1 homer so far against righties. But if you look at 2020, Ozuna was great against right-handed pitching. He had 11 homers, 12 doubles. He hit 333. He had the 579 slugging, a 1,000 OPS, 246 ISO, and a 423 WOBA. As for Freeman, MVP, I mean, this guy was lights out against lefties and righties. It didn't really matter. But against righties, check out these numbers: 12 homers, 20 doubles. He slashed 373, 493, 733. He had a 1.228 OPS, a 360 ISO, a 499 WOBA against right-handed pitchers. That's video game-like material. So I like those 2 guys. They're in my lineup. And this is where I get a little bit different. I'm going away from the stacks, 2 and 2, and then 1 and 1 as solos. Francisco Lindor against Eric Fedde. Fedde, I just don't think he's a good pitcher. You can say that he's been unlucky to start the season, but I don't agree with that at all. 11 1/3 innings so far, 13 hits, 7 earned runs, 6 walks, a 45% fly ball rate, a 41% hard hit rate, and an 85% contact rate. That's number 2 in all of baseball. Only Antonio Senzatella has a higher contact rate this season. Fedde has a higher contact rate than Matt Harvey does so far this season. You want to take a look at last year's 50 innings for Fedde? In 2020, 4.29 ERA, a 12% strikeout rate, and a 10% walk rate. Not good. And an 86% contact rate. So he has an 85.7% contact rate since the start of 2020. That's number 3 in all of baseball. Only behind Rick Porcello and Mike Fiers, who are 2 gas cans. Fiers got helped out a lot pitching in Oakland. Fedde's not pitching in Oakland today. He is pitching against the Mets. A lot of the Mets have struggled so far to start the season. There was some postponed, some COVID. They haven't played a lot of ball games. Francisco Lindor is not off to a great start for his New York Mets career. He's only hitting 204. He's only got the one homer. I look at his 2019 season, 24 of his 32 home runs came against righties. He had the 293 average. He had the 263 ISO, 359 WOBA, the higher fly ball rate, the higher hard hit rate against right-handed pitching. If there's a time to break out, it's against a contact pitcher like Fetty, who has the 86% contact rate. He's not going to miss very many bats. Lindor is going to move to the other side of the plate. It's a decent matchup for him here. I like some of these other lefty bats like Conforto. I think the Mets are a sneaky little stack, and Lindor is checking in at a cheap price because of the slow start to the season. The final guy here for me, David Fletcher, 5.9K. He's cheap, needed somebody to plug in as a one-off type guy up against Zach Greinke. So Fletcher has hits in 8 of his past 9 games. He's got 3 multi-hit games over his past 5. As for Greinke, coming off a really good start, it was against Seattle. They got a lot of swing and miss inside their lineup, a lot of young kids. They're playing well as a team. But I'm not, overly thrilled with that start from Greinke. So far, 5K per 9 and a 16% strikeout percentage. That is the lowest mark since his 2005 season, and an 82% contact rate, the 5th highest. So for Fletcher, 12% strikeout rate this year. A little high for his career. It's 10%. I'm looking at a guy who makes a lot of contact, get on base a couple times, and away we go. I'm not completely sold on Zach Greinke, missing a lot of angel bats. Got Fletcher leading off atop the order. So that's the lineup. We got just a little recap here. Olsen and Chapman up against Lopez. Olsen is my MVP. And then we got the 2 Braves guys, Freeman and Ozuna, up against Luke Weaver. Bit of a fly ball guy, giving up some home runs lately. I like a lot of runs to be scored in that game. And then we got Lindor up against Fetty, who is a massive contact pitcher. So a good spot for Lindor to break out. And then Fletcher up against Zach Greinke. A couple other that I wanted to throw out here. DJ LeMahieu is 8-9, Mark Hanna's 9-1, obviously Carlos Correa at 7-1, and Bregman at 7-2, and Harper at 8-4. You don't want to have all 3 of those guys because you have very similar lineup as StatHero, but those guys are certainly in play if you want to mix and match. I think the stacks really outside of Colorado against Velasquez, if you can find a way to get a Blackmon inside your lineup or a Story, I think that's perfectly fine. It's just going to cost you a lot. Philly on the other side, a lot cheaper than those Colorado bats. Atlanta, 4.8 team implied total against Weaver. Boston, 4.8 team implied total against Kikuchi, a 77% contact rate. I mentioned Martinez. And then Kike Hernandez and Xander Bogaerts are certainly in play. Those guys are great against lefties. And then Chicago White Sox, 5.1 team implied total, tied with Oakland up against Dane Dunning. So my lineup is projected to score 36.2 fantasy points. It's just a tad lower than them, but I like where we're at. Any questions? At Chris Meany. Again, free content at ftndaily.com when it comes to StatHero. Get yourself involved in that Discord channel as well. And if you have a question, don't be afraid to leave it there in the YouTube section. I'll circle back before first pitch, which begins at 7 Eastern. Good luck out there. Again, it is just your lineup against Stat Heroes. Let's take them down.